Welcome to WLNM's original English light novel review with your host, Zeke Changuris.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the WLNM OELN Light Novel Review, a podcast dedicated to promoting and discussing novels with their authors and their fans. We dive into the whys and hows of writing and ask those process questions writers and fans just need to ask. We sit down today with DracoNight, aka Donavan Walker, the author of Star Warden, a sci-fi story of a knight on a crusade against the darkness that infects a galaxy. Welcome to the show, Donavan.
Greetings. Thank you for bringing me on here. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So tell me a little bit about Star Warden. I mean, I tried to be as succinct as I could from what I could gather, but tell me your elevator pitch of what is Star Warden.
Well, once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far, far away, darkness reigns and innocent suffer. But all hope is not lost, for in rides the Star Warden, Sir Samuel Bailey, armed with the holy sword Dawnbringer, a ray gun, and rocket pack, and a heroic heart. He journeys an alien world with Princess Kaguya on a quest to dethrone the Dark Lord Deimos and restore all that is good and right.
Okay, so it sounds like we got a good mix of fantasy and sci-fi elements in this story. Is this something that, do either of these genres particularly appeal to you? Is it, you generally gravitate towards the fantasy realm or the sci-fi realm?
Oh, I'm definitely more of the sci-fi guy than the fantasy guy, but a lot of things I do like mixes. Star Wars or Sonic the Hedgehog has that kind of mix. He-Man, Master of the Universe has that mix. Like I do not mind, but I lean more to sci-fi. I like my rocket pack. I like my ray gun. I like my really advanced tech and spaceships. But throw in some fantasy in there. They have some cool stuff. It's just I like some indoor plumbing with my fantasy.
Yeah, I like to me, whenever I think of like rocket packs and ray guns, I think of those older serials from the old like Buck Rogers serials or Rocketeer, those stories where you have this Flash Gordon-esque kind of character that's trying to save the universe from Ming the Merciless. And it's one of those things that used to come on in the afternoon when I was a kid. I mean, you'd see these old serials, black and white, and they were campy as hell, but they would be basically filler program for some of the TV stations I watched. And that kind of got me hooked on those kinds of stories.
You're right on the money.
Yeah. What attracted you to those? Is it just that did you get some sort of early exposure, or is it just something that you came across?
No, I went to them because mainstream entertainment is terrible. Like Star Wars went down the drain, like deliberately so. And so I was lost. Like Star Wars was my first exposure to sci-fi and fantasy. My first big memory of teen fiction. And it was amazing. I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and it was just gorgeous. So I fell in love with the whole universe, and I went into it. I saw the other movies, and now what Disney did to it was just criminal. And so I had to leave it behind. Either I'd be angry about it, or I had to leave it behind. And so I took it from there, and I decided to think, okay, what about other stuff? Like I needed to find some older inspiration. Like where did George Lucas go to? And then I stumbled onto John Carter of Mars, and then DC's The Warlord, then Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, The Rocketeer, which I then used to make for Star Warden. Because what I didn't mention earlier is that Star Warden also fits one more subgenre, some would call it. It's an isekai story.
Okay.
Which fits in with Flash Gordon and John Carter as well. But it is this idea because one of my other inspirations has been a lot of Japanese anime and some light novel. In fact, that's the reason why I made Star Warden a light novel as well. I gave it some illustrations because current isekai, what we get now, is not as good. It's not as fun. Like even if you could find like objectively good things people would defend, it's like, yeah, but they're not fun. They're not adventure tales, and we're not getting those adventure tales anymore. It's like we're getting one type of storytelling, but we're not getting the other ones anymore. So I wanted to add to that. I wanted to do. Oh, sorry.
No. So you kind of did what a lot of the advice is, that you write what you want to read yourself.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars is like what I want to see. It's a hodgepodge of things I've discovered and things I've always like mixed into this blender to create something fun for people to read. So we don't have to get angry about all the what mainstream is doing, or if we don't like what Japan is putting out. We just don't have to take it and get angry and feel salty about it. Like, no, we got some good stuff. We got some new stuff. Like if you want some action focused isekai with no harems. Like you don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with the love triangle stuff, and you want some good guys and some bad guys, and not some over edgy, overpowered teenager random someone from Japan. Then you've got Star Warden to get you through that, because the main character, Sir Samuel Bailey, he's an adult. Well, he's from America. He's an adult. He's already married in the story, so you don't have to deal with that process. And he's a hero. I mean, true blue Superman Boy Scout level of hero. Oh, and it's like he's a paragon, which is something we don't get a lot anymore. Because that's what I want to see more. I don't need a lot of character development. I don't need a lot. Oh, he's doing it because of revenge. Like, no, he's a man bound by duty and honor to fight for what is good and to restore what is right. Because
Go ahead.
His end story, to add to it, Sam is a rebel. Like, if you look at isekai stories, you have the story of like a character summoned to fight a demon lord that's out and to save the world. Well, in Star Warden, the demon lord already won. Deimos took over, so the conventional war is over. He's in charge, but Sam came to the world, and he's now taking up the mantle to lead the rebellion. But as far as he and all the other good guys are concerned, this is not a rebellion. This is a restoration. They're not overthrowing authority. They are removing a usurpation. Like, they are removing evil authority, the bad version of it, and restoring proper righteous authority. It's not just, it's a fight for freedom. No, it's a fight for the freedom to do good, to be good, and for righteousness. It's not just rebelling because down with the system. Like, no, we need a good system, not a bad system.
Okay. I definitely get that. And I like that you brought up John Carter, because I remember when the film came out, people were like, well, this has all been done before. I'm like, dude, but this is where all those things that have been done before got the ideas. Because John Carter came out, the Edgar Rice Burroughs, wrote those books almost 100 years before the film came out. And so, yeah, the idea of, saving a princess on an alien world and having being stronger and being better, those came from those are old ideas, and a lot of the modern storytellers took a lot of their ideas from guys like Burroughs.
Yeah.
So
now
I
wanted to subvert them and kind of get rid of them, because we've been through this before. Like, so now we're going to go through this again, and we're going to be there. That doesn't mean you have to keep excising it.
Yeah.
Sorry if I sound a little angry. No. It's something I keep hearing when the people are praising like jobless reincarnation and all that. Like, they're doing things different. They're doing things different now because all the whole hero fighting the bad guy stuff is old. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's bad, and doesn't mean it should be just tossed to the wayside because it's old.
No, my opinion is always there is plenty of room in this world for stories of all kinds, because I've never read bad stories. I've just read ones that may not appeal to me personally, but every author has it's not my right. It's not my right to invalidate someone's creativity and someone's story. They have just as much right to put out their stories in this space as I do. And, whether it's traditional or something so experimental that I can't wrap my head around it, I'm like, do it, be creative, put that out there, because the world's built on stories, and it doesn't matter whether that story is an old one or a new one, they add to our existence as people. So I'm always for more stories, regardless of what they are.
There are no bad ideas, just bad execution.
Yes, there has been bad execution. Trust me, I've witnessed that one. So what is how do you approach writing? Are you an outliner? Are you an organic discovery type of writer? What is the way you set your writing process?
Well, I do have outlines, but my outlines are really short. It's just like a brief synopsis of what the plot, and then what those chapters are, and then what chapters are. They're usually like a couple of sentences, maybe a paragraph at most, and then I start writing. The goal for my writing is mostly just to get to the point. Because what I've read in some light novels, that they either take too long to get to their point, or they lose track of themselves trying to do all these different things to keep them going longer. And okay, this isn't important right now. Let's get to like what's actually we need to fulfill the plot, to further the plot. Because the first book, Star Warden, is only 130 pages. Yes. The second book, the second volume is just 136 pages. They're really short because I don't want to waste a lot of time focusing on things that doesn't matter to the reader. And two, the reader is valuable time. Like you can read my books on lunch break because they're designed that way. Because you don't have a lot of time to read everything. You're not going to read everything. So my best case, especially as a new writer myself, is more like get to the point, get to what you need to get you to, so you can finish the book quickly. It's an enjoyable read, but it's also a fast-paced read because I want to make sure your valuable time is used with good entertainment, not just wasting time, me trying to impress you. Like, oh, I have these fancy words, I can make these huge tapestries. Like, okay, but unless that's furthering the plot somehow, what does it matter to the reader? The reader's not going to care what the author cares for. We don't always care for the same things. It's something I've learned from seeing reactions to my book too, and other reviews. Like, okay, they weren't talking about this, but I guess that just didn't matter to them as this. I just gotta deal with what matters.
Yeah. Hey, The Great Gatsby is 47,000 words. And it's held up as one of the greatest pieces of American literature out of the Jazz Age. You don't need 1,000 pages, which I've read those books too. And sometimes especially in the light genre and the fantasy world, especially when they're using a RPG, mechanics. Sometimes that makes me a little nuts because they bog themselves down a little too much in the mechanics, talking about leveling and things like that. And I'm like, I don't need 3 pages on this. I want to progress the plot further. And yeah, it's something that it doesn't work for me, but I'm not a gamer. I never was a gamer. I mean, Asteroids and Pac-Man maybe, but I wasn't a gamer growing up. So I get kind of lost in everything I know about RPGs is from reading like things like Shield Hero. So
I am a gamer, and I can tell you those RPG things. I don't like them. I don't like them either. They're unnecessary. They don't really add much to the story, especially in Shield Hero.
There's a lot of breakdowns of leveling and things like that, and I personally don't need it. I'm not that kind of nerd. I'm not a gaming otaku, but I know that there's probably somebody out there who's like, oh, that makes absolute sense. But okay. I mean, I just see that usually they write the game that stuff in a different font, and I just flip to the page where the regular font starts again, and I really haven't missed much. So it's it depends on your audience, and sometimes that audience is a lot nerdier than you are, and I find that hard to believe at times because I'm a pretty big nerd.
You don't have to worry. I don't have any RPG mechanics in Star Warden. There is a virtual world stuff, but I'll let you find it out when you get to volume 2.
Okay, all right. So what do you think about the genre? As in, why do you think the isekai genre is popular? What do you think is attractive for people when they're reading it? Is it just wish fulfillment?
Partly that, but what's popular now, the modern case, I'm not entirely sure what it is. Most of the genres is mostly about character relationships. Like if you look at the big ones like Mu, Shoku Tensei, ReZero, even in Shield Hero, it seems it's less about the action and adventure parts. It's more like character dynamics, character development. It's very much internal struggle focus, and I think some stories do well enough that people who like that are now jump on the isekai, since that's mainly the format it comes into. As in, you're going to another world, and so you have a new chance to experience things and to do things. But so with that, there's a lot of things you can explore. But the thing is that Sacrifice is a lot of the world building, because a lot of these worlds are fairly much the same in any way. There's some minute differences here and there, but ultimately they are medieval. They are medieval D&D, Dragon Quest, fantasy worlds where RPG mechanics or not.
Yeah, there's. I've always found I'm a researcher in general, and I write. Hell, I wrote an entire paper, a master's paper, on how the realist hero rebuilt the kingdom and the use of Machiavelli. Yeah, that was actually fun. But I've always been fascinated by the adoption of medieval European societies for Japanese-based light novels. Like it's why are the people of Japan so fascinated by medieval Europe when they have their own equally fascinating medieval world or medieval time period? Yeah, when the Shogun era, Shogun eras and the Heian era, and is equally as interesting. So,
well, I think it's because it's a foreign landscape. The advantage of like isekai, or if you're like in America, Portal Fantasy or Sword and Planet, as some other people would call it. But the fascinating is like it's a foreign environment. It's not what you're used to. And for Japan, going to medieval Europe is definitely much more of a fantasy environment than say Shogun, the Edo period of Japan, where it's like, okay, that may be foreign in a sense, but it's still part of Japanese history, and there's still a lot of remnants of that in the country today, like in the city of Kyoto. Or you go to one of those, I think the shrine, and one of those shrines, I think they still have pieces of history. So it may not feel as foreign, but I can't speak for the average Japanese person on that.
Yeah.
Like,
what brought you? Let's say the word is, what is your favorite? What brought you into writing? As in, were you always a writer? Was it something that you've already always had stories, and you've been trying to tell them since you were a kid, or is it something that you realized you wanted to do later?
I've always wanted to write as a kid. When people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be an author. Like I said that as naturally as I breathe, even if I didn't fully understand what to do on that. And I realized over time that it's actually a really big part of my life. I consider it my life's purpose, my God-given purpose, to actually be a writer. Because there was a time in my life where I gave it up. I tried to be like, okay, you need food, you need to be much more pragmatic, you need to actually focus on a real job and all that nonsense back in high school. But I tried to give it up, kind of be more practical. And I just hit into a long bout of depression, and I was not in a good place in life, and I was aimless. That made me realize, like, I really just wanted to write. Like, that is my aim. That is my North Star. That is my focus. Now I just realized that, one, I don't need a mainstream publisher. I don't need a traditional publisher to do it. I'll publish it on my own if I must do, but I have to get it done. I have to write it, and I have to get these stories out.
Hey, the key to being a writer is just that, right? Which many of us, do. And the barrier to, and this helps show you how old I am. When I first sent out my first manuscripts to attempt to be published, you literally sent the query letter to a publisher, in which you got the name out of a big thick book for the publishing, let's see, publishers market. It was like a telephone book, thick, and it told you all the requirements that each of these publishers would want in their query letters and who to send it to for what genre. And the only way to get into the space really was to get a publisher behind you to put out something. And then for all the bad things they say about that can be said about Amazon, one of the best things they did is they lowered the barriers to self-publish.
For better or worse.
Yes, they made it so if you have an idea, you have a book, you have something that you want to put out there, you've got the chance to do it. And it's sold on their platform just like any other book. And I really appreciate that accessibility that they've done, but they opened up a whole new can of worms. I mean, because there's so many companies that now do that, because you can do printing on demand if you want to have hard books, or things like Royal Road and Honeyfeed and other web novel hosts that really let you as an author get out there and put your stuff out in the wild and see how the world accepts or criticizes your work in some cases. It's a really nice to be in an era where the barriers to that publishing are lower, because you just got rejection letter after rejection letter does do something to your psychology. Trust me on that one.
Now you can just avoid the rejection letter.
Yeah. You
can't avoid the 1-star reviews if you get them, but hey, that's better than the rejection letter.
Exactly. It meant they actually looked at it.
Yeah.
So, there's that. I mean, a 1-star review means somebody bought it, someone looked at it. It's better than the rejection letter that said, we're not going to give you a chance.
Yeah. Plus, at least you could probably learn something from a 1-star review. And not all 1-star reviews are bad. Someone's 1-star review is a 5-star recommendation for someone else.
Or I've talked with many writers over the years about how they use things like Royal Road or Honeyfeed as beta. They write the first draft of their novel and they put it out in the wild, and then they take into account what people are saying about it, when they work on their second draft, to see, okay, they thought this section was weak. Do I need to punch it up more? Did I spend too much time explaining this? Then I can cut that section back. I think it's a great way of getting a lot of, you have to sort through it, but the free advice. And typically when someone types in the comments, if they type something in the comments, it's going to be constructive, because the people who just don't care enough to log in and type a comment, because usually it's not as easy as just like click. So, you're going to get someone who's actually read something and thinks, oh, this might be something you might want to try, or I really liked this. So, do you find this process easy for you? Is writing, like, do you sit down and you just start writing and it works like that? Or is this I can't quite put those words on the page right now. I can't think of where I'm going to go.
Writing is easy. Editing is hard, at least for me. But putting the stuff on the page, as long as I know where I need to go, I can just do it very quickly. It's editing and trying to clean it up where I have difficult parts. Like, okay, I use this word too much, or like, oh, I use this word right in the right paragraph. Trying to describe things differently. Like most people have told me about my books, most of my readers, they want a bit more description. And because mine is like, okay, you can use your imaginations. I keep it like fairly simple unless it's important to describe. Otherwise, I try like, here's this and then keep going. But I've been hearing more that they want a bit more deeper description, so I'm working on that. Like the difficult part of editing is like, you've already made the cake and now you gotta redo it, but you gotta be precise. You can't just throw out the whole cake and start over again, because that'd be easy. Like, no, most of the cake is good. You gotta make these little adjustments. And it's like you gotta use a fine-tooth comb rather than a bulldozer.
Yeah. Oh, though there are times where I've had to make an adjustment, and I've had to go back like you suddenly come to a realize, oh, this would work better this way, and then you have to go back and like seed that idea through the previous parts of the story so it makes sense as a whole. And that part can be a killer because you want it to make sense when you get to that point and you're like, okay, where do I add the threads that connect this idea? So what when did you start putting this out there? When did you start publishing?
Let's see, when did I start writing, or when did I first publish it?
When did Star Warden hit?
When I started late 2018, and it was there was a death in the family recently. It wasn't really related, but I was like, it really pushed me to get started on it. Like, oh no, I wanted him to read it. It's like, but like, it's a reminder, time does not wait for anyone. It's like, all right, I better get on this immediately. That's where it started. Like, I started out trying to figure out how to write it like in novel form in one big document, and then realized I didn't like it. And so I had some trouble there. Then I cracked open my first Robert E. Howard book, Red Shadows, Solomon Kane story. And when I saw that the chapters were like a page or two, like chapter 1, that page done, I was already chapter 2. Like, wait, you can just write this, you can like write it like this. You don't really need a long chapter. You can just be as short or long as it needs to be. That liberated me. So I tossed out my first draft completely, started over again. And then everything else was like smooth sailing from there. And I published the Star Warden Volume 1 in 2021. Star Warden Volume 2 came out 2022. And then Star Warden Volume 2 came out this year. And that's where it started, really. Just me writing, discovering how to improve it as I go, and then just putting it out there when I felt it was done.
I can't recommend that enough, because too many writers have the problems with this. They write and then they're afraid to put it out there, or they don't know where to write the words "the end," because sometimes you just write as long as the story goes and then you stop, and because at some point stories do end, they don't go on forever. Is there anything else?
Unless you're Japanese light novels.
Yes, and then you just keep going and ride that train as long as you can. But I think a lot of us would probably be willing to ride that train as long as we could.
I'm ready. No, there's already an end for Star Warden set up already. There's going to be an end to this train. And I don't care. They can pay me a bunch. I'm not making I have no plans to make an unnecessary sequel. If I get an idea for a sequel, then I'll write it down, but I'm not going to do it just to ride the train. There can be other stories for that.
Okay. Thank you very much for talking with me today. Thank you, Donavan. And we covered a lot, and I liked your insights on writing and how we can motivate ourselves to do that writing and why we do. If you want to check out more, go to DFW Chronicle at blogspot.com to take a look at his website. I'll have that link in the description. To all of you who are listening, I want to say thank you. And to all of you who are new to the review, please hit like and subscribe, because as we know, when we like things on YouTube, it helps place those things in front of other people. And if we are placing this interview in front of other people, that means you're giving exposure to a light novelist, and that helps grow the community. So until next time, for WLNM, this is the OELN Review. I'm Zeke Changers, and keep reading.
This has been a WLNM podcast.